If I ruled the world.
Episode 11. Welcome, Greg Prato.
Hello, guys. Thank you for having me.
I've been calling you Greg Prato,
Yes.
and that's not correct, right?
Yeah, well, I'll just repeat this since people don't know, since it was before the recording.
Right.
I pronounced my last name Prato, but I learned that it's named after a town in Italy that's pronounced Prato.
Right.
But I go by Prato for some reason. I don't know
So
why.
I'm kind of right.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
so
Greg.
it's the Long Island version.
I
guess.
mispronounce everyone's last name. That's just how it goes. But
Tomato.
yeah, exactly. And I'm close enough.
to Prato to Prato.
Yeah,
Right.
Prato to Prato.
So I've known you for a minute, and I've been following your career. And
Well, we've actually known each other. We've known each other for quite some time.
yeah, that's what I mean by a minute. That would be
okay.
the sort of the modern word for a long time.
Right.
I've known you for a minute. That's what the kids say.
Yes,
Greg.
since I think the late 90s, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably about 20 years.
Something like that, yeah.
And I'm familiar with a lot of the books you've done.
Mm-hmm.
Bad Brains book of Faith No More, book on Blind Melon.
Yes.
And when we asked you to do this interview,
Mm-hmm.
you said, let me get you a copy of my new book coming out. And you were kind enough to send us an advance copy of this book called Yacht Rock.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So
the
I get
Yacht Rock book.
The Yacht
It's
Rock
called, yeah.
book.
Yes.
So I get this book, and you said to me, you wrote me, you go, don't be afraid. Dig in. And I said, okay, because I didn't really know what Yacht Rock was.
Okay.
And it turns out that Sam does. And as it turns out, I fucking love Yacht Rock. And I had no idea. Just explain what Yacht Rock is
Right.
and the journey of the book a little bit so we can just sort of like
Sure.
preface
Well, the
it.
thing is, when I was young, listening to pretty much like when my parents were listening to whatever they were listening to on the radio, it was all the pop hits of the 70s.
Right.
And for the most part, it's like the soft rock of the 70s, but you can't just say it's soft rock as yacht rock. It's the Eagles, Doobie Brothers, Hall & Oates.
Okay.
So that's kind of what yacht rock is, but if you picture maybe being on a yacht or
Right.
a boat and sipping a pina colada,
Right.
and if you're back in the 70s, maybe snorting some cocaine,
Right.
that would maybe be what a yacht rock is, I guess.
Right. And it feel like when I started to learn about it and listen to it and think about it, I'm like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
And there was the web series.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
was the term, because the web series was the first time that I've actually heard the term. So do you know if the web series like predated that term? Because I've never heard yacht rock until Hollywood Steve.
Yeah, I think that's what popularized the term. But what I talk about in the book is, I believe, a DJ in the late 80s in Cincinnati or someplace may have coined the term, but we don't know his name.
Okay.
So we don't know. Yes,
WKRP.
WKRP in Cincinnati.
But if anyone would find out his name, it would be you, Greg.
Yes, and I wasn't able to
You
do
or
it.
Nardwuar.
So that's a dead
Actually, you
issue.
know what? His name is Potsy Weber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the web series, like I told him, because when you told me that he wrote a book on yacht rock, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? That's amazing. Because it had to be the early 2000s, right, for the web series?
Yes, early 2000s.
So, and I thought it was like the coolest concept. And later on, Comedy Central does the drunken history thing, which I almost feel like it bit some of that idea. So they had these like short stories that
Right.
explain the songs and the plot, but obviously they made it up. But it was so goddamn funny, and it was like kind of like in the not the beginning of the internet, but kind of, you know, it was like MySpace at days.
Right.
And they did such a great job with these stories. So it was just. They took these songs, and then everyone played the characters. They had the Hall & Oates character.
Right.
They had the Jeff Skunk Baxter
Yes.
character. I fucking loved it.
Because, you know, the thing is, though, I really discovered yacht rock not from that web series, but there's a great tribute band called the Yacht Rock Review.
Okay.
And they're phenomenal, and that's kind of how I was introduced to the whole yacht rock thing, and that's when I backtracked and checked out the whole yacht rock web series and everything like that.
Right.
So it was really, I highly recommend that band. They get dressed up like it's the 70s, and they do all these songs. And I'm not the biggest tribute band fan, but it's
Right.
really good with them because a lot of the songs from yacht rock are like one-hit wonders.
Right.
So it's not like you're going to think of what some of these guys look like. So
And,
kind
and
of a
also,
different thing.
you never know until you hear it, and then you're like, oh, shit, I know that song.
Right.
And then it's just like this automatic, like, I don't know. Because I'm sure my parents listened to it. My parents had bizarre taste in music that I probably didn't appreciate at the time.
All right. The book is set up in what's called the oral history format, which is what I like to do with the majority of my books, which it's I do a bunch of interviews, and there'll be a topic, and it's just quotes from people pertaining to that specific subject. And what I like so much about that is you're getting the story straight from the horse's mouth. It's not like, for instance, like I wasn't there back in 1977 when the Eagles were writing Hotel California.
Right.
So when I'm interviewing Don Felder, the guitarist from the Eagles, he's telling me exactly what was going on then. There's no reason for me to jump in and say, Joe Walsh woke up that morning kind of hungry.
Right.
Because no one gives a shit about that. So
Right.
you're getting it straight from the horse's mouth.
Right.
So, and I mean, I'm the same with you, George, that I wasn't totally sold on like would I really enjoy this music now, but listening to all these soft rock hits from the 70s, it's just, I think, great music. It was written well. I think all the artists wrote their own songs, played their own songs, sang their own songs, which is the total opposite of today when you have to hire all these different songwriters with pops.
Right.
I'm sure there's people singing. There's also, of course, like auto-tune. There was no such thing as that back then.
Right.
Although there's a thing in the book we talk about session musicians were a very big thing back then.
Yeah.
But, you could hear like Hall & Oates' voice. It's not like, you could totally tell which band sounds like, like they each had their own trademark sound is what I'm saying.
Right. And you get to interview these guys.
Yes.
And when you're interviewing about yacht rock, on some level, it's kind of a joke. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. Are they like into that, or do they like if you called someone a one-hit wonder, you might be like, okay, I get what you're saying, but do they take it as an insult, or they're just totally cool with it?
Everyone was pretty cool with it. I started the interview by saying I was doing a book on 70s pop music because I wasn't too sure what the direction was going to be. So then when it became clear it was going to be about yacht rock, I would mention it. But like for instance, when I interviewed Kenny Loggins for the book, I asked him about the term yacht rock, and he said, well, I think it's kind of not a good term, but my kids say that it's, done like kind of like lovingly.
Right. Okay.
So, I think...
Interesting. He's such a big part of like those series.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the term hair metal now to those.
Yeah, it's not mean,
right?
But it might not be preferable if you're like an artist and you're like, hey, I did all this music and I put my heart into it, and someone calls it yacht rock, and I'm just curious how they take it.
Some of them don't like it. I heard that Michael McDonald does not like it. I heard that Daryl Hall does not like it. But I interviewed John Oates for the book, and he didn't seem to mind it.
Right.
I feel like Daryl Hall doesn't like many things.
I interviewed him a few years back for a book called MTV Ruled the World. And he was a very nice chap on the phone.
Yeah.
But because like there's a thing, I don't know if it's as you get older, like back in the 80s, like I did not like Hall & Oates. I was into like Motley Crue and bad heavy metal.
Yeah.
And then and then as I get older, I totally appreciate Hall & Oates and like all these bands I think that music is phenomenal now that I hear.
What is that though? Because
I don't know.
The same thing. Like I loved Motley Crue. Yeah, so I was like 10 or whatever, like listening to like Dr. Feelgood, and there was no fucking way in hell I was going to listen to Hall & Oates.
Right.
But as you get older, you're like, okay, maybe this wasn't that bad, and then you go back and listen to like something.
But you kind of grew up on it in a way when you were a little kid, so it's in the ether. But then you reject it because you're getting into whatever metal or punk rock or Run DMC.
And the thing with yacht rock is you also associate it, I think, with your childhood. Like I remember like hearing these songs on the radio with my parents and driving around and stuff like that. So I guess you kind of associate it with that.
Right. And you're not in an age like 15 when you're like, I can't.
Right.
I gotta really show what people are about with my music.
Yes.
We're older now. We can really appreciate it and enjoy it and remember when we were kids.
I think a lot of people like me, I listen to everything at this point.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much
all three of us definitely do then.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone I could think of, like all my friends, all my family members, I think that's just a popular thing nowadays, just to listen to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, in a way, even when we were younger, you listen to something strict, but you turn on MTV and then different types of music were playing next to each other, and then the next stage is kind of like iPods.
Yes.
And then you start mixing things in, and then I feel like it really is just kind of like people do listen to different things more than they used to.
Playlists and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because in not even high school, but like middle school, you had to like I remember being in 8th grade, and it's like you either like Skid Row or Technotronic, and that was it. You couldn't do or the New Kids. So, and then once you get older, you're like, oh wait, I like Cypress Hill and I like Skid Row too. And then you get even older. But definitely now, like there's so you could tell me any name of any band, and I can go to my phone and listen to it right away.
Yep.
And then from there, it's like you either like it or you don't.
Yep.
So I love that part of it.
I agree. And I was going to mention the book comes out March 6th. That's when this book comes out, called The Yacht Rock Book, and you get it on Amazon.com. or wherever it's gonna be sold in bookstores. It's through a publisher named Jawbone Press, which I did a book called Shredders last year,
right?
Which was about 80s heavy metal guitarists. So.
Right.
And then also on top of that, on April 8th, which is a Sunday, I'm going to be appearing at Cluett Hall in Garden City,
Yeah.
at a record convention called Vinyl Revolution. That's what it's called.
We'll make sure we put up all the links for everything that you're doing.
Yes.
Underneath.
Yes. And I'm going to be appearing there. There's going to be a lot of vinyl vendors, and I'm going to be selling this book as well as a lot of my other books too.
Oh, great.
So people can meet me, and I'll sign their book and take a picture with me if you want, and even chat.
Yeah, that's fun.
I figured I'd just throw that
just
out.
Out of curiosity, like for me, thinking of writing a book seems like the biggest just undertaking ever. How long does something like the Yacht Rock book take you?
This took me about a solid year, I would say, but probably after about maybe 6 or 7 months it was done. And then I had to find a publisher, and then there's a lot of going back and forth with formatting it. You got to find pictures, designing it, that type of thing. When the first book I ever did was A Devil on One Shoulder and an Angel on the Other, a story of Shannon, Hoon, and Blind Melon.
Okay.
That took me a very long time because I was new to it, and I didn't know how to set up the stuff and setting up phone interviews and that type of thing. So that took way longer than it should have.
Okay.
And then a book called Grunge is Dead that I did.
Yeah.
That should have come out a lot sooner than it did, but again, just I wasted so much time, which I didn't I know a lot more now.
And super interesting, to pick Shannon Hoon. What year was that?
That the book came out?
Yeah,
2009, I believe.
Now,
or excuse me, 2008. 2008.
What made you want to start writing? Because, was that something that you always wanted to do?
You mean just that topic, or just music in general?
To basically say to yourself, that you want to actually even write a book and then do it.
Well, I started writing in 1997, and it was a total fluke because I took a job at a music magazine that's no longer around, which I will not name because I hated it.
Okay.
I just had a very bad experience. Not that I hated it, but just some of the people there sucked.
You could say Hit Parader. It's cool.
Nah. So it was actually Time Magazine. No. So
Time Magazine.
So what happened was I just took a job there as a customer service rep. It had nothing to do with writing.
Okay.
And I saw how easy it was to write just by the people that were working there.
Right.
And I even tried writing. I did a little bit of writing for them, but my boss made it very clear that I was never going to write for them. So I jumped out of there, and I started just freelance writing for magazines and local things. And that kind of snowballed, and I got to the point that I could just support myself with just writing for magazines. And that's right when the internet boom started.
Okay.
So I started writing for a site called All Music Guide.
Right.
So I did a lot of album reviews. I don't really do album reviews anymore, but then that just kept writing. I started writing for the Rolling Stone website, Billboard, things like that, Classic Rock Magazine. And then in 2000, I figured I should the Shannon Hoon story, I've been such a big Blind Melon fan for so long, and I love Shannon Hoon, and I felt like he wasn't getting the props he deserved for his talents. So that was just something I always wanted to read, was a book about him.
Yeah.
And I was friendly with the band because I did a feature on Blind Melon for Classic Rock Magazine in probably about 2004, 2005.
Okay.
So I was on pretty good terms with them, and then it just turned into me doing a book. And then it came out in 2008, and that's probably my strongest selling book. It still sells very strongly. I still get feedback from people on Facebook and Twitter and stuff.
Now, what was the gist of the book?
The Shannon Hoon book?
Yeah, it's
just a whole history of his whole life and also the band. And I interviewed as many people as I possibly could. I interviewed his mother, his girlfriend / mother of his child, bandmates, also people like Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses, who were friends with him, and Kim Thayil from Soundgarden, Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains. A bunch of people I interviewed for that. And I'm very happy with how that came out. I think that's great. And it's my dream one day. I think that book would make a phenomenal movie. I really do. I'm always trying to. I wish one day, if someone's listening to this interview right now and they have any kind of connection to the Hollywood scene.
Yeah, is that how does that get shot? Is that something you know how to do?
I actually have a actor in mind who's one of my favorite actors, which I can't name because I don't want to spoil the surprise. But I finally found who his agent / manager is. I'm getting a copy of it and sending it to them in about a week or two.
Right.
So I'm having my fingers crossed that. And he's a gentleman that does a lot of movies that are based upon real life people.
Oh,
Okay.
great.
So everyone's like going
I think
through
now with Netflix,
Right.
those like
they're doing a book about Motley Crue right now.
absolutely.
Yeah, so.
I think Machine Gun Kelly is playing Tommy
Right,
Lee.
yeah. Yeah,
And when
so-
you like, if you're when you're such a big fan of an artist like you are with Shannon Hoon, and then you do this book, and now you're asking a bunch of people to give stories and almost be a part of it, and you have to curate all of this material, is that nerve-wracking? Like, you're almost like, this is a responsibility to make it come out correct.
At this point, it's not, because I've done probably close to 1,000 phone interviews over the years. So now it's just like I've done some. I mean, I did a almost 3-hour interview once with Eddie Vedder for the book Grunge is Dead.
Okay.
And there were some moments in that I was like, holy shit, I'm speaking to Eddie Vedder.
He seems like a really fantastic guy.
He was. He couldn't have been a totally nice gentleman on the phone. He was great.
Now, and you're doing a new book with them, right?
I did a book. It's not with the band, but it's coming out in May, called 100 Things Every Pearl Jam Fan Should Know and Do Before They Die. It's a ongoing, excuse me, it's an ongoing series through a publisher named Triumph Books.
Okay.
They do sports books and also music books. They did like a Beatles book about this, and they've done like all sports things. And they got in contact with me because of the Grunge is Dead book. They said, we know that you were a fan of Pearl Jam. You know a lot about Pearl Jam. Would you be interested in doing this book in the series? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So I've been working on that for about, that was about 6 months. I worked on that because that was, I did a few interviews, but it wasn't really heavy on the interviews. It was more just like 100 like 100 subjects, and I just did about 2 pages on each subject. So it'll be like, one of the entries is like, for instance, let me give a good one. Well, for instance, Temple of the Dog. You just talk about like that. Yeah. We talk about, trying to think, like each album. So there'll be an entry about like 10, and it talks about the story behind that album, and if there were like all the different versions of the album that came out over the years and things like that. And I found old interviews with the band that I have, quotes that you may not have read, maybe like a long time or ever.
Right.
So yeah, it's coming out in May.
Okay.
I don't know the date, but it's coming out in May through Triumph Books. It's just crazy. I mean, he really did not care if he was living or dying, I think, at that point, with the things he would do on stage at that point, with climbing up high. Like, you see this footage. I mean, it's definitely, he definitely had balls of steel. Right. I wouldn't have the balls to do half the stuff.
No, you're definitely sweaty from like singing, right? And you're like hanging off of shit that like all you have to do is like fall.
Right. Just slip a little bit,
yeah, definitely.
Or even that, when he used to climb the lighting rigs, what if the lighting rig just fell on the audience? I mean, like, couldn't that have happened as well?
And you can get up, and then how do you successfully get back down?
Right.
Getting up sometimes a lot easier.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Getting up,
exactly.
definitely. Yeah, you just sit there.
Yeah.
I saw Billy Milano do that. I saw like this. I know I was watching like an SOD performance, and
is on, I believe, YouTube. I think I've seen that.
Yeah. He's like up on the speaker, and then he jumps. Though like I'm telling you,
yeah, it was very high.
It was very high.
Isn't he wearing a mask?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was when they played the Ritz in 1991, I think. Yeah,
that's what it was.
Yeah.
So I forgot who put it up. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Lazzara still does some of that stuff a little bit.
Okay.
With Taking Back Sunday.
Yes.
I saw him a couple of years ago, and he was climbing the side of the Paramount. I'm like, all right.
The singer of Dillinger Escape Plan, I think, does that shtick as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he does some crazy shit.
Yeah,
did you see the Virgin Megastore one?
No, I haven't seen that. No.
Holy shit! Before the band starts, well, actually, as the band kicks in, they're doing like a record thing at Virgin Megastore. Like, as soon as they start, he runs from the stage, and then he walks on people's heads all the way to like almost the end. Like, then they start playing. It was the craziest beginning I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, then he's just like 100 feet from the stage. And
what about also G.G. Allen? He used to go out there in the crowd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little different, but actually 10 times more dangerous if you're in the crowd.
Well, that would like he was like, you want to talk about like folklore.
Yeah.
Growing up, like I remember being like in 9th grade, hearing those stories from the people that went, and I don't know how exaggerated this stuff was. Now you could just go up on YouTube, but it's like people were like scared for their lives. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I will stand by one of my favorite rock documentaries ever is Hated.
Hated.
Did you ever see that?
No.
Oh, really?
Oh, you have to see
Phillips.
It. Phenomenal. I mean, it's like totally. It'll make your skin crawl, but it's you have to see it.
By the way, Greg, this is my whole life. Hey, did you ever see that? No. Did you ever hear that bit? No.
Yeah.
No. Did you ever?
And the guy who made it is Todd Phillips.
Yes,
who
went
did
on to do films and stuff.
Old School.
Yes.
Like he went on to like make a zillion movies.
Yes, that was his first ever thing. I think he was a school. He was
like
a
a
film
college project.
student. At that point.
Yeah. I showed it to my dad when I was like 15 or 16 because I had the DVD, and like to this day he brings it up. Like, and me and my dad never talk about anything, but he'll ask me two things. He'll be like, yeah, something about percussion for my band because he's Hispanic and he's always trying to get me to do that. And then the other thing, he's like, you know what you really need? First of all, he always tells me what I need in the band. I'm like, yeah, or whatever. And then the other thing he brings up is that fucking movie. He's like, remember that movie? That guy who would shit on the floor? And I'm like, his name is Gigi Allen, Dad.
When I was first dating my wife, I actually showed her that, and she didn't really particularly like it, but she did accept it, and then we later got married. So I guess that was a test of. Thank you.
Honestly, yeah.
Standing up.
It could have gone the other way.
Absolutely could have gone the other way, but I found out that was the woman for me.
Yeah.
There you go.
From the Shannon Hoon thing, like how far before you realize you want to go to your next book, which is Grunge's. What is it? Grunge's Dead.
Well, yeah, I did a book between that, but yeah, the next big one was probably the book called Grunge's Dead: The Oral History of Seattle Rock Music, and for that one, I interviewed the Soundgarden guys, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, all the gentlemen I interviewed for that one, and that's also a pretty popular book as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a one I'm very, very proud of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Were you big into that?
Super duper big into that. Yeah, I would say Soundgarden's one of my favorite bands of all time. Friendly with Kim from Soundgarden. I still text him. We're both very big fans of baseball.
Okay. What is he a Mariners fan?
He's actually a Cubs fan because he's originally from Chicago, but he also does follow the Mariners.
Okay.
And I'm a fan of the Mets.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very painful trio of teams. I root for the Mets, Jets, and Islanders. I can't think of a more painful trio of teams to root for.
Right, that's.
I'm just begging to be kicked in the balls.
I'm a Yankee fan.
I want to say I also did sports books as well. I did a book about the Yankees in the 80s.
Did you?
I did.
Is Wayne Tollison in there?
No, I interviewed. Let me think of some people you may recognize.
Did you really?
Yeah, I interviewed. I'm trying to think of some people that you may recognize. Name some guys from the 80s. The 80s Yankees. I'll tell you if I interview them.
Claudell Washington.
No, I actually reached out to him, but I couldn't get him. Yeah.
Andy Hawkins.
No, I didn't get him.
Who pitched a no-hitter and lost. That's how bad the Yankees
I interviewed Dave Reggetti.
Oh, rags.
Who pitched a no-hitter in 1983 on...
Number 49.
On the 4th of July.
Yeah.
I interviewed Phil Necro, who is a Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Knuckleballer. Him and his brother.
Yep. So I interviewed some pretty big names.
And what's like the book about? Just
the 80s, yeah. Because I've always found it interesting that the 80s. That's I think the only decade the Yankees did not win a World Series in their whole history, or at least close to.
I think
that was the only one. Yeah, they were only in the World Series in 1981, and they lost it.
Yeah, and my family's from Flushing.
Okay,
so all of them were Met fans.
Mets fans. Okay. Yeah, because just as a baseball historian, although I'm a Mets fan, I always found the 80s Yankees to be kind of interesting just because they came close. I mean, if they had the wild card baseball set up back then, they would have definitely been in the playoffs a bunch of times. But since they didn't, throughout the 80s, they only were in the playoffs 2 years.
Yeah.
But you know what? Fuck sports. Let's get back to music.
Let's get back to fucking music.
Right, George?
This is your show, Greg.
Oh, okay.
No, you talk about what you want. This is your life. But how do you do sports and you do books? Like how do you?
You know what? Wait a second. You know what? We should jump. You and I attended a very wild party in 1999. A Halloween costume party. Do you remember this? It was thrown by Colin Schiller and also Jay Gersh.
Yes, I do.
Toga.
Do you remember Josh DeMarco was dressed as Axl Rose?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember who I was dressed as? And you and I actually talked that night. So you do have we did actually talk. I remember.
Did I have an afro?
I don't think you even had a costume because I have a picture of you standing next to Josh. I actually still have that photo, but I was dressed as somebody.
I was many Halloweens ago, but I don't remember.
I'll give you a hint. I was dressed as my favorite rock singer of all time,
Freddie Mercury.
Yes.
Oh,
interesting. I was dressed as Freddie Mercury.
How do I know that's your favorite? Because of the Fleischmans.
Fleischmans made also Facebook. I randomly post Queen-related content. So.
Right. Oh, man, I got to see a picture of that.
So, I could definitely hook you up with that.
I think that's going to go on the website under your episode.
There's a picture of me dressed as Freddie Mercury on Facebook, so I could easily forward that to you. Yeah,
let's
I could
do that. Let's spread that.
What do you want to see a picture of Josh DeMarco dressed as Axl Rose? I could get that for you as well.
Yeah.
What do you think of the
Show what
Struts?
we got.
The
Show what I was
Struts?
dressed at.
Wait, I'm not sure. What is that?
Oh, okay, never mind. Yeah, I mean, they're just a band, a new band, and the singer sounds like Freddie Mercury.
Oh, okay. No, I'll have to check them out.
I'll send it to you.
All right, yeah, I'll
It's
check
fucking
that.
great.
Cool. I'll check it out then.
But do people pitch you ideas to do?
Yeah,
Like,
for
this is
instance,
what we
the
need,
book
or-
about Pearl Jam was pitched to me.
Okay.
That was pitched to me. But everything else, to the best of my knowledge, was me. I did a book about Scott Weiland.
Right.
And what happened was someone posted on my Facebook page. They said, I loved your book about Shannon Hoon. You should really consider doing a book similar to Shannon Hoon, but about Scott Weiland. And that was like a week after he died.
Okay.
And back in the day, I was never a super duper Stone Temple Pilots fan. They're actually a funny band because when they came out, I didn't really like them because I thought they were like a grunge ripoff.
Right. Me too.
But then, but then as their albums went on, I think they were less and less a grunge ripoff, and they found their own voice and their own style. And their second album and third album, I think, are absolutely phenomenal. Now that it's one of those bands that now I can appreciate a lot more.
Right.
Looking back, and I did a book about Scott Weiland called "Memories of a Rock Star," which came out about maybe just a few months after he died, and that was a good book.
Yeah.
So it came out a few months after he did?
Yes.
So you were
So you had
writing
to-
it?
I was really under a strict deadline with that.
Wow.
Yeah, I was doing interviews, transcribing, editing it all together, all at once. So
you had to just sort of like bang it out.
yeah,
They
had
say
to.
This is the deadline.
Yeah, that's what I did. So it came out pretty. Yeah, I mean, we could probably look it up if you want to look it up on Amazon what date it came out. But I know Scott Weiland died in December. It may have come out as early as March or April, if you could believe that. I was working very, very hard, very, 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 very long hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's it like to have a deadline that you're about to be late for?
I mean, I work full time as a writer, so it's not like I have to worry about commuting any place. So I could just,
Oh, you could work from anywhere then, right? Basically.
I could if I wanted to. Yeah, I could work from the beach if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Are you good with deadlines? Because I
Yes.
feel like every artist we know is not.
I am pretty good.
Every
deadlines.
writer, that's last minute on the way to the studio.
No,
Whatever.
like for instance, yesterday I interviewed the guitarist of the band Judas Priest, and I was told the deadline is tomorrow, and I got the article and interview into the Long Island Pulse today.
Oh, KK?
No, Richie Faulkner. He's the guy that replaced KK.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the new record sounds pretty goddamn good. Like
Firepower.
Yeah.
Yes, it's heavy.
It's heavy. It reminds me of like almost like Painkiller stuff.
Yes,
Very good.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm looking for you.
Even though I'm more of a Maiden guy.
I did a book about Iron Maiden.
Did you really?
Yeah, it's called
did I miss
it's
that?
called Iron Maiden 8081, and I interviewed Paul Di'Anno for that book and also several other people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, what made you want to do that?
In the 80s, I was a very big heavy metal fan. I loved Iron Maiden.
Me too.
Yeah, but the first two Iron Maiden albums with Paul Di'Anno, I think, really hold up well because it was like a blending of punk and metal.
Absolutely.
So I always wanted to read a book about every book I've ever done, besides the Pearl Jam book, because that was offered to me, although I love Pearl Jam. Every book I've ever done was a subject that I felt strongly about.
Yeah.
So like in early 80, 81, Iron Maiden was right up my alley. So
Yeah, I would imagine it's hard to write about anything that you're not passionate about, especially at this point, if you do it for a living.
I probably could write a book if I was paid enough.
Yeah.
about a topic I hated, but
At that point, maybe I guess I could too. But,
Right.
but yeah, it's funny.
Right.
So so you didn't jump into like later Maiden? It was just like those two records?
I go with Maiden up to about 1988. Then I don't go beyond.
Good. That's
I can't. To be honest with you, I don't like to badmouth bands, but I can't stomach the third guitarist in Iron Maiden, the guy that dances and
Yannick.
prances. Yeah, and I can't stand that. I've seen them several times with him, and it just takes away too much. I can't stomach it.
You don't like him swinging his guitar around his
Nah,
neck?
it just totally rubs me the wrong way. Totally rubs me the wrong
I
way.
have tickets to go see the Iron Maidens, which
Oh,
is
okay.
all female.
That I'd be interested in
band.
seeing. To be honest with you, I'd be probably more interested in seeing that than the actual Iron Maiden at this point.
We'll talk after the show. Blackthorn 51.
There you go.
By the way, the date for
Yes.
Scott Weiland book was February 24th, 2016.
Wow, so that was two months after he died.
Wow.
You believe that? I can't believe it.
That sounds like a tight deadline.
Very, very tight.
You're professional.
Yeah. Yes, that was tight. That was a very tight deadline.
Yeah.
Would you say that was as tight a deadline as a tight situation you were in when you were traveling in tight quarters on a van with a band called Day in the Life?
No, nothing's quite as tight. when you've been in a band with those dudes.
Too bad that was before cell phones. Can you imagine the video footage you would have had? If
Well,
you could
I'm kind of glad that it wasn't, to be quite honest with you.
Do you think of the discrete videos you could have taken of your fellow bandmates?
That's not really my style.
Oh, okay.
I feel like maybe there'd be videos of me that I don't want floating around the ether. But yeah, that's kind of how I met you back then.
I remember you and I.
Fleischmans.
I remember you and I discussing like Jane's Addiction.
Yeah,
we both talked about, and I think you like Faith No More, right?
Yes.
Back, yeah. Mm-hmm. So we were probably talking about those two
Bad
bands
Brains,
in particular. Yeah. Yes. We talked
probably.
about Bad Brains.
And these are some subjects of some of your books.
Yes, I did a book about the Bad Brains as
and
well,
Faith No More,
and also Faith No More as well.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, and
That's
that's
true.
I mean, that's obviously passion projects. But is that something you have to write and then pitch to somebody, or they're like you pitched them first and they're like, go ahead and write it?
Those two books came out through a self-publishing thing. I have my own book corporation called Greg Prato Writer Corp that I put some self-published books out through.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, the Faith No More book is called The Faith No More and Mr. Bungle Companion, and the Bad Brains book is called Punk Hardcore. Excuse me. You have it there? Oh, there you go.
You got it right here.
There we go. Punk Hardcore Reggae PMA Bad Brains. I've written so many books I have to now look at the covers before. Yeah, so that's what that one is called. And both those books are those are both oddities in the Greg Prato canon of books, that they are not oral histories.
Okay.
That is more of a regular style book. Yes,
Yeah.
narrative, yes.
Oh, narrative.
But,
so what's the approach with this?
It's just, it goes with their whole career. It just goes, album by album, starts with how they started, and just goes through that. But then in the back, I remember I also had a little bit of a oral history thing where I interviewed guys from bands that are fans of Bad Brains and also Faith No More. So like, I'm just looking at this Bad Brains book. There's Les Claypool from Primus, Chad Channing, who played on Bleach from the band called Nirvana.
I think
and
Jamie
also
Josta.
yes,
Dave Grohl.
Jamie Josta, and or is it Yosta or Josta or Hosta?
Josta.
Josta. There you go. Yeah.
Definitely not his real last name, but
Yes. And then also both those books, what was good is I did features on Bad Brains and also Faith No More, separate features for Classic Rock Magazine. So I had all those interviews done already.
Right.
So I was able to get like an interview with Jim Martin from Faith No More, who is like a very hard guy to get. Like I don't think he does
Pumpkin
interviews
farmer,
anymore.
right?
Yes. So I got I interviewed every single bloody Faith No More member that ever appeared on record through a Classic Rock article. So I was able to then use that in this book, plus also plus new interviews, plus archival interviews I found. So that's how I did that Faith No More book. And the Bad Brains book was similar, that I interviewed all the members. I tried interviewing HR. I did a phone interview with him, but it was unusable because he made no sense on the phone.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I see video footage of them live in the early 80s, and I'm sure if I was lucky to see the Bad Brains in 1982, that probably would have been like the greatest show ever.
Right.
But I sadly saw them from 1999 onwards, and it
Soul
was
Brains.
it was awful.
I just
I
saw them
a couple of those
in Chicago last year.
How was it?
For Riot Fest, and I'll just say that I saw them in Chicago.
Yeah. You and I, did we go to the Irving Plaza show in February 1999? Yes.
Yep. Yeah. I think, was it one of those Cro-Mags opened for? It was like original.
I don't think
Cro-Mags.
I would have.
Two of them.
I would have remembered Cro-Mags.
Yeah.
Or either I went late, but I remember seeing that and being very, very disappointed.
Yeah, it was.
I actually talk about that in the book Punk Hardcore Reggae PMA Bad Brains.
Yeah, it was a lot of disappointment there.
Very,
you know?
and I've
you don't
seen,
expect the guy to be doing backflips anymore,
right?
But
Still, yeah.
there is a disappointment.
Yes,
Yeah, there is like this thing that, like, if you talk to anyone from New York that was there in '82 at CB's, everyone's jaw, like, they're always like the Bad Brains.
Well, you just got to look on, just look online. Yeah, you just got to look on good old YouTube, and you'll see things that. Yeah, they put out a DVD called CB. I don't know what it's called, but it's CBGB's in 1982.
Live at CBGB.
Yeah, and it's like phenomenal. How they sound, what he's singing, just everything is just great.
And even all through the Eye Against Eye and Quickness Hour, it was still,
Quickness
just
after that. Yeah,
it was otherworldly.
Yeah,
and then to sort of drop down to that level where HR was just behind the music and like with a big smile, but ultimately disinterested.
Yes,
and it was disappointing.
In fact, I remember seeing Bad Brains with a different singer opening up for Living Color at Roseland in 1993. Yes,
yeah.
And I mean, they were good.
Israel.
Yes, they were good. They weren't phenomenal, but they were good. They were. I hate to say it, they were better than when I saw the Bad Brains in 1999.
Yeah,
but the drummer from Cro-Mags, I think, was playing drums for Bad Brains at that point.
Mackey, yeah.
Yeah, I believe he was a drummer.
I know that Questlove, they just did that art show.
Oh, okay.
I think it was like in Philly, and they had Randy from Lamb of God come out and sing, you know, the HR parts. They did like 4 songs. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
You know, it's what you need. You need that energy, and it's just, you know.
Yep.
I guess time goes on, and you just can't do it, or maybe, you know.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like with the Bad Brains book and the Faith No More book, again, those are 2 bands that never really had books about them, or in Faith No More's instance, they had a book about them, but it only went up to Angel Dust.
Okay.
So I wanted to cover the albums after Album of the Year. And personally, one of my favorite albums is called King for a Day.
Yeah.
I love that album. And then also cover good old Mr. Bungle, because I absolutely love Mr. Bungle.
Do you?
Yes.
Yeah, never. Did you get into them?
Not really.
Yeah.
It's definitely a acquired taste, but I still love them.
Yeah.
Great band, Mr. Bungle.
And you, when you do the interviews, these are mostly phone interviews?
Yeah, I've done I've done a few face-to-face interviews. I've done a face-to-face. I could name some of the people I've done face-to-face interviews with over the year if you like.
Hit it.
Rob Halford.
Nice.
I've actually done about 3 face-to-face interviews.
Nice.
Also Ace Frehley, Josh Hame.
Okay.
From Caius and also Queens of the Stone Age.
Nice.
Gary Delabate from Howard Stern.
Oh man, really?
Well, because I appeared on the Howard Stern wrap-up show. So
I think I heard it actually with John Hine.
yes, it's actually on YouTube. If you want, just do a search for Greg Prato, Howard Stern wrap-up show, and you'll hear
lifelong. I still have Sirius. I listen to it every day.
And who else did I do? Oh, Marky Ramone. I did a face-to-face interview with Scott Gorham from the band Thin Lizzy. Who else did I do? I appeared on Eddie Trunk's Sirius show. So,
yeah, I listened to that on
so
YouTube.
that was a face-to-face thing. And I partied with Beetlejuice back in 2000, so I don't know if that counts.
And what do you mean by partied?
Yes.
Well, I did something called dwarf tossing.
You did? I was just going to... No, did you really?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Yeah, I hate to say I did. I'm very... It's kind of embarrassing and sad to say that I did that, but I did.
I was totally going to ask you as a joke if you did that, and you did.
Yeah, I did. I'm very, very ashamed. I don't know why I did that. I feel very bad. I have to apologize for doing that.
You were there. How can you not?
Yeah.
You know, it's...
But that was for a friend. I don't know if my friend wants me to say his name, so I'll just keep that hush-hush, but it was his bachelor party.
Okay.
We actually hired Beetlejuice.
Is that a famous friend?
It's someone that you know.
Okay. If I know them, they're probably not famous. Semi-famous.
Right.
And you talked to Ace Frehley because you also did an Eric...
I did a face-to-face interview with Ace Frehley, too.
Because you did an Eric Carr book, which I think is completely fascinating.
Yeah, when I was young, Kiss was like my favorite band. And I like now really just 70s Kiss is what I'm into.
I got into them during Hot in the Shade because I was 11.
Yeah.
And Hide Your Heart, like, for me, because, like, Desmond Child ruled the world. So that he was like the Linda Perry or Butch Walker of today. Like this, you definitely know Desmond Child.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
So anyway, he was just like a person that they, you know, these bands would get to help them write these hooks and stuff.
Aerosmith and all those bands hired him.
So everyone laughs at me, like my older friends, because I'm like, I hate Kiss because I got Hot in the Shade. And they're like, of course you do, because you got Hot in the Shade, you know? And I, you know, even going backwards, like some of the 70s stuff is okay, but it's fascinating. Why did you pick Eric Carr?
Well, you know, like I said, like really now, I to be honest with you, I really just listen to 70s Kiss when I listen to Kiss. But there is a album in the 80s called Creatures of the Night.
Yeah.
Which I think is one of my favorite Kiss albums, even though it is not the original 4 Kiss members, because it's a very heavy album. It reminds me almost of like Judas Priest Screaming for Vengeance, which came out the same year, and also Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast. For some reason, 1982 had a lot of great heavy metal albums. And that album, Creatures of the Night, is phenomenal. And the thing that made it so great was the drum sound from the drummer named Eric Carr. It's a very heavy John Bonham-esque drum sound. And he died, Eric Carr died in 1991.
Was it?
He died the same day as actually Freddie Mercury. He died from cancer. Freddie Mercury died from AIDS.
Wow.
It was in November 1991. And I always just wanted to read his story, and I was able to interview his former girlfriend, his sister, Bruce Kulick, the former guitarist to Kiss, a bunch of producers, people. So, I did a book, and that's also a pretty popular book. That's called The Eric Carr Story.
Now, because Kiss fans are so rabid, like, did they take to the book?
Some have, some haven't. Primarily, I've gotten very good feedback. The people I interviewed for the book, everyone seems to like it. So that's really what I guess matters the most. The people that knew him like it, and they said that it was like a very realistic portrayal of who he was. So, I mean, that's really all that you can ask for when someone that knows someone says, yeah, that's who that person really was. So
yeah, it was one of those random names. Like I told him, like when I walked over, I was like, George, this guy wrote a book on Eric Carr. I'm like, that's so random.
You were like, oh, is that wasn't that my 5th grade teacher?
Who is that again? That sounds like my neighbor. But some of these books that you do, like the MTV Ruled the World and Overlooked and Underappreciated, is not, specifically about what I would think by Bad Brains book and Faith No More. So you also have this interest in maybe pop culture and some hidden gems. And
yeah, I mean the early days of MTV. I mean I absolutely loved the early days of MTV. I think pretty much everyone did. That's how I discovered a lot of music and everything. So I wanted to do a book, and it's called MTV Ruled the World. For that one, I did a lot of interviews. I did interviews with former VJs like Nina Blackwood, Alan Hunter. And also a wide variety.
Julie Brown?
No, because it's really only the early 80s. It goes up to the launch of the channel up to the first VMAs, which was 1984.
Okay.
So that was really the cutoff date. And I interviewed a lot of people for this book. I interviewed like Geddy Lee from Rush. I interviewed one of the Wilson sisters from the band Heart. I interviewed Weird Al Yankovic. I interviewed a director of several videos, like he did Billie Jean from, of course, Michael Jackson.
Right. Okay.
So you get like the inside story of that, which is kind of interesting.
Those are real breakthrough videos.
Yes.
That just made the channel.
Yes. And we also talk about the whole Billy Squier Rock Me Tonight controversy. Are you familiar with that video?
No.
You ever hear of that video?
Yeah, because it's the one that tanked his career.
Yeah, he was a arena headliner, and he put out a video where he's very flamboyant. Okay. And it went totally against, I guess, what his hard rock audience wanted to see or associated him with.
Right.
But in his defense, there were a lot of other artists around that time that did that and somehow got away with it, such as David Bowie and Mick Jagger did that video for Dancing in the Street.
Oh my God, that is the most embarrassing
where it's just
ever.
awful.
Yeah.
And I mean, and Kiss is a awful. They did some of the worst videos ever in the 80s.
I think Lick It Up is up there.
There is videos that are 10 times worse than Lick It Up. There is a video called Let's Put the X in Sex.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
There's a video also. There's a song called All Night.
I don't remember that.
Also a video called Tears Are Falling.
Yeah, that's another
where
one.
Paul Stanley is dancing and prancing, and he's not even playing guitar. He's just busy dancing and prancing. It's just awful.
It's amazing.
It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
Really,
as far as
you have to see these videos.
Yeah,
Seriously,
I'm
not
making
really.
a-
You have to.
I'm making you a YouTube playlist.
Yeah.
But like, I think someone should cover these things like they do like Yacht Rock.
Yes,
Like someone should do like that or like a masterpiece.
Yeah.
You gotta find the right name.
Yeah. Like that video that you mentioned needs. Was it Rock Me?
What, are you talking about Billy Squier?
Yeah, the Billy Squier.
Rock Me Tonight.
Rock Me Tonight.
Yes.
Like that one needs like a full 30-minute episode on something.
Yes.
It's fucking ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's so horrific that it's fascinating. Really, it's like one of those things that it's like a train wreck that you can't keep your eyes off of.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so bad. It's
yeah, really. Yeah, exactly.
James Franco should do a documentary.
Yes.
On it. Definitely.
We'll tweet him.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to ask you about Yacht Rock book, I forgot to bring it up before, but Fred Armisen does the foreword.
He did.
I'm such a fan of his. Like,
Yes.
how did that happen?
He's in a band. He's in a band called Blue Jean Committee. Okay. And he does yacht rockish type stuff. Mm-hmm. It's him and his the guy that's in a lot of his other either movie. What's his name? Hader, Bill Hader.
Oh, Bill Hader.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's Bill Hader and him, and they wear. I hope I'm not blowing his disguise, but they wear costumes. They wear like long hair, and they dress up like they're from the 70s.
Okay.
And they do music that's very authentic sounding to the
they
whole.
They do
yacht
like
rock.
actual
Yes.
live shows, or you mean?
Yeah,
YouTube
I think
videos?
they've done YouTube videos. They did an EP, and they may have done live shows. I don't know, but I know they've done music videos and they've done an EP. I know that much. Mm-hmm. And there's a picture of them in the book.
Okay.
Yeah. So So I got in contact through his label, the label that put out that EP, and I just said, hey, can you put me in contact? Or I asked the publicist, I said, can you just forward this to him? Mm-hmm. And then I just happened to get an email directly from him saying that he was interested.
Wow. And
that he would want to see the book. So I sent him a copy as a file, and he loved it. And he said, yeah, I would definitely want to do it. So he did that. That's how I also got Alex Lifeson from the band Rush to do a forward for the Shredders book.
Okay.
I just reached out to him and, through a mutual acquaintance, and I just got an email directly from him saying, yeah, I'd be interested. So
right.
It's kind of, I guess it's all about who you know, but
and you also have like a catalog now.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like in the beginning.
I'm always doing interviews. I also know a lot of publicists. I also write a lot. Oh, that's something else. I also write a lot of press releases as well.
Okay.
So like I have pretty good contacts and.
Fred's a pretty musical guy. Like I've been seeing him. Anytime I would see Wilco, like 12 years ago, they would bring him out there. And I was just like, what the fuck is this guy doing out here?
Right.
And then I learned that he had a band that sounded like At the Drive-In from like years ago. Called Trenchmouth.
Yeah.
There's something on Netflix that he did, which is about drummers. It's like Stand Up for Drummers.
Yes.
Or something. I didn't
see it,
watched
but I heard,
it, but it's
I did not know that he was married to one of the actresses from the TV show Mad Men, which I love that TV show Mad Men.
Okay.
And he was married to one of the main actresses, and I didn't know this until like way after the fact.
Uh-huh.
So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, well, with the facts.
Shout out to his wife.
Yes. But the book Yacht Rock book, comes out March 6th. I just want to state that. Yes, March 6th. And also I'm doing a appearance, which I'm going to be signing that book as well as my other books like Shredders and The Faith No More, Mr. Bungle Companion, and PMA Hardcore Reggae, Punk Hardcore Reggae PMA Bad Brains. I'm going to be signing them and selling them at a record show called the Vinyl Revolution, which is at Cluett Hall in Garden City, right on Stewart Avenue.
Georgia and I will be first in line.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was gonna get my book signed tonight, but I'm gonna wait.
You're gonna wait.
Yeah. What, you're gonna have all your books?
Most of my books, yes.
Really?
I'm gonna be bringing a lot of boxes of books. March 6th for the book, April 8th for the appearance.
Right.
So I don't want to screw up the dates with that.
Well, we'll make sure we have it in
Good.
In print.
April 8th, which is a Sunday. I know that.
Right.
11 to 4. That's what it is.
We'll make sure they all know.
After church, we'll go.
Yes.
But what's cool is your catalog is something for everyone. It really is. Like, if you're a music fan, you're going to find there's such a huge amount of books. And if you go to the Amazon link, we'll put underneath, you'll see, you just go, I mean, you got to go through page 1 and page 2.
Right.
And you'll see just, I think a lot of writers might sort of write in the same vein of music or same subjects or the same type, but you also have it as narratives and oral history. And I love the oral history style because there's a lot in there.
I agree. And also all my books are available as Kindle downloads, so you go on Amazon and order that. And also I know on the iTunes store I have a lot of books available as downloadable, so you could read it on your iPad or iPhone or whatever.
Cool.
Can we do the Shredder stuff? Like,
sure.
That's pretty fascinating. So
yes, that came out last year. Yeah.
Why'd you want to make a book on Shredders?
Well, in the 80s, I was a big heavy metal guy, and I was really into wasting a lot of my time in my room practicing guitar, where I should have had a social life, and I instead decided to just sit in my room and practice and listen to a lot of Metallica.
Okay.
Well, it paid off.
I was going to say, I'm still doing that, minus...
It's funny that, honestly, I had no social life, but if I didn't do that, and I'm being serious, I probably maybe would not be doing what I'm doing now. Because I know so much about music because of reading about all these bands and listening to all these bands and watching videos and going to concerts. So
if you were partying and hanging out with the Long Island riffraff,
yes,
who knows? You wouldn't have been able.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
you would have been my coworker.
Right. And I even in the summer of 1991 took guitar lessons from John Petrucci from the band Dream Theater.
Nice.
Yes. So I was really into shred guitar for a while, and although I don't really listen to that style of music per se anymore. I've always been a fan of like Van Halen, especially the 70s and early 80s. Also, I love the first 2 Ozzy albums with, of course, Randy Rhoads.
Yes.
So there's always again I listen to a little bit of everything. So that those types of things I would still listen to. And in the 80s, before there was the internet, I would learn a lot about bands by magazines like Guitar World and also Guitar for the Practicing Musician. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those magazines aren't even like in print anymore.
Right.
So I was just wondering about a lot of those guitarists that I read back then, like what they were up to, and just the whole entire shred movement, because it seems like that really has come back in the last few years, for better or for worse. Like a lot of the new metal bands are a lot of shredding and very, very technical guitar playing.
thrash has a huge resurgence.
Yes, absolutely. But even now, there's like a whole appreciation of hair metal, which I personally don't like hair metal. I mean, I like some hair metal, but if I never hear like Bon Jovi again, I'd be happy.
Right.
So.
I think Bon Jovi agrees.
Yeah. So
you wanted to write a book just basically like focusing on shredders. Like,
shredders.
What are some of the shredders that you were listening to or that are in the book?
Well, the band King's X. Do you guys know the band King's X?
Yeah.
I'm actually doing a book on them right now as we speak.
Okay.
And that's going to be authorized by the band. But the guitarist Ty Tabor, I think, is a phenomenal, underrated guitarist. He was interviewed for the book. I also interviewed Kirk Hammett from the band Metallica.
Mm-hmm.
That's my first real influence.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Until Greg Ginn.
Oh, nice.
Because you know what it is? So Metallica, Kirk Hammett made me wish I could play guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I could never play like he could, but anytime I would listen to something like The Thing That Should Not Be, or like these like weird solos, I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then later on, like a few years after that, I listened to Black Flag, and I was like, I could totally do that.
Right.
So Greg Ginn really like influenced like just me wanting to do that and being like, I'll listen to Metallica, but I'll fuck with Black Flag.
Well, that's what I love so much about grunge is like I was wasting all this time with practicing and trying to be like Steve Vai back in 1991, and then suddenly Nirvana comes out, and then it's more about the importance of the song and what you have to say. It's not, just how fast you can play.
When I was younger, I was really into metal just like you, and I would judge a band by the length of their solo. So if it was like 12 seconds, I'd be like, oh, this is kind of weak.
Right.
If it was like a minute and change, I'd be like, fuck,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's
There
why
you go.
I'm like, this guy wrote a book on shredders.
Right.
Amazing.
But I'm trying to think who else I interviewed for that book. I interviewed Lita Ford.
Awesome.
Would you like to comment on that, George? Or?
I think he said it all in the awesome.
Let me think who else
Summed it up
I interviewed.
nicely.
One of his,
with,
one of the biggest mind over matter influences, right? Later.
I interviewed,
when I was growing up.
I interviewed George Lynch from Dokken.
And Lynch Mob.
Yes, I interviewed Michael Angelo Battillo. All I have to say is thank God for Nirvana, because that was like, in fact, that guy even says in the book, he says like, what I was doing was taking it so much out there, like where else could you have gone?
Right.
Like he even admits that now.
Right.
So.
It was like that pendulum swings way back.
Yeah, way out. In fact, I think he may have even said that exact thing you just said, like that the pendulum swung so far, like where else are you going to go? Like how much further, how much faster can you play,
Right.
Yeah. And then you go and Nirvana comes out with those like chords, just 4 chords and then the 2 notes.
Yes.
And all they were trying to do was supposedly rip off the Pixies.
Yeah. Although I will go on record saying my favorite grunge band of all time, I want you both to take a guess who you think it is. Go ahead.
Soundgarden.
Tad.
You're right.
Oh,
Soundgarden.
Wait. You already, I was going to say, wait, you already told us, so it can't be Soundgarden.
There you go.
He said that a little while
Yes.
ago.
I am still sad about Chris Cornell's passing.
Yeah.
Still am.
And you interviewed him.
Yes, I did. I was lucky, and I even met him once.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty good friends with Kim. Like I guess I'm in contact with him still pretty regularly, and it's just sad. It just sucks. I mean, just from a fan standpoint, just to think of all the music now I'm not going to hear.
Right.
Because I know they were writing for another album.
What did you think of the comeback record?
I thought it was great.
Me too.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I can't say that from some other bands that I may have done books about, but.
Oh, you didn't like? Okay. Yeah.
Well, I'll say I didn't really care for the
Solo
Faith No
Invictus?
More. Nah, there were a few okay songs on
Yeah,
it, but I didn't really care for it.
Yeah.
I wanted to be blown away by it.
It is hard though. Any comeback record is like tough to really.
I thought that Soundgarden did a pretty good job with their comeback record.
Yeah.
record.
But just in general,
King Animal.
it is a tough,
It is a tough. You know what? With Soundgarden, what they do, which I think was right, was they did a fair amount of touring before they went in and wrote and did an album. I know Faith No More did some. I don't know how much touring they did in writing.
Right.
But
And Jim Martin wouldn't come back for the
and that kind of also rubbed me the wrong way with the whole Faith No More reunion. It wasn't what it should have been.
Right.
But in time,
Could have been, I mean.
In time, you do look at The Real Thing and
Angel Dust.
Angel Dust, and the last 2 records are pretty fucking good. It took me a minute to get into King for a Day and
I always loved that album. I always loved King for a Day.
I like Digging the Grave and some of those songs, but like it took me a while to I
felt like every record always took me a little while.
Yeah.
And then you're like, then once it gets in you, you're like, oh, okay.
You guys got to check out the last 2 Mr. Bungle albums, because there are definitely some Faith No More-esque things. The album called Disco Volante and also California.
To be honest, Sam's more likely going to do that, Greg.
Is
George
that true?
is just going
is
to
it?
follow up with Sam. Sam's going to say, "No, it was awesome."
You're gonna, but will you at least check out those bad Kiss videos that we're telling you about, where Paul Stanley's dancing and prancing shirtless? Would you at least check that
That'll
out?
do.
Now, when Paul Stanley's dancing and prancing shirtless, will you be shirtless as well watching the video?
It's not likely, and I will do anything for a guest.
He does
Except
have
for
those
this.
cute little boots on.
Spandex? Do you have a pair of spandex you could wear at least?
Why? Who does? Yeah, I mean, you know,
You know who had the
everyone's
worst?
got a pair.
You know, you know what I still do. Speaking of videos in your book, every Friday I DVR VH1 Classics because they play 5 hours worth of like metal videos. So I just DVR the whole thing and I just flip through because it's such a fucking time warp.
Yeah.
And I see videos by like YNT that are just the
Right.
worst pieces of shit ever, but it's amazing.
I interviewed the guitarist for YNT for the
Manichetti?
Shredders book. Yeah, Dave Manichetti.
Manichetti, yeah.
Yep. I interviewed him for that book.
Yeah, well, that video is amazing.
A song called "Summertime Girls." I think.
Yes, that's
there you
the
go.
one.
I told you I wasted a lot of my life watching Headbangers Ball. It was on Saturday nights from I think 11 or midnight till about like
11 to
2.
2.
And, yeah.
Yep.
And I think what most normal people would do is they would set their VCR and go out to a
Right.
show or something or go out partying, whereas I just stayed home in my room and watched the shit while it was live.
Right. It was a lot of VCR tapes
Yes.
floating around.
Yeah.
120 minutes. and
120
headbangers.
minutes, yes.
Yeah.
120 minutes exactly. Yeah, and then also Alternative Nation. Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry. Going back to your book with about MTV.
MTV ruled the world.
When MTV ruled the world, yeah, because I mean, I guess they don't rule the world anymore.
I don't think it's even. I mean, is it even around anymore? Like, I don't even know
I'm
if they,
sure
or if it is,
but
they don't
it's-
play music
it's
videos.
shows.
It's all shitty shows, all reality TV.
Well, you know what
That's,
they did, which is weird. I remember the movie. They cut the M.
Oh, right. Yep.
Because
I remember that. Yep.
And then what their excuse was is that they were always geared towards youth culture.
Right.
So whatever was happening in youth culture was what they were going to go for.
Right.
But also, I would
Yeah, but
imagine
they're right, because if videos is what would make money, they would just do that.
Yeah.
They're not trying to be like, no, everybody wants videos, but we don't. They're always a lifestyle channel.
Right.
You know, we just didn't really notice it in that way, but they're doing shows now.
Right.
you know?
But the thing with MTV is, although I was introduced to a shitload of bands and artists that like I probably wouldn't have otherwise.
yeah,
One thing that they are guilty of is they really did categorize music to the point that like maybe I listened to heavy metal a little bit too longer than I would have if it was a little more like free form.
right.
Like they really had like blocks of just pop music, heavy metal, rap. It wasn't just like a when MTV first went on the air, it was more of a mixture.
Yeah.
Then from about 1984, then suddenly you just had like the heavy metal special.
It was like Hard 60,
right,
and like
yeah, they
rap.
had like 120 minutes,
Yeah. It was like
Headbangers
they do
Ball,
that, yeah.
Yo MTV Raps. It was all specialty programming.
I feel like also like in the beginning there was not that many videos, so I think they were playing what they had.
yeah,
True.
that too. Yeah,
But
they also did not play a lot of black artists early on. We talk about that in the
yes,
book. Yeah.
that was a
Michael
thing.
Jackson was, although you know people pinpoint Michael Jackson as the first black artist, but Prince was being played before Michael Jackson.
Okay.
I believe 1999, and also Little Red Corvette
Right.
Okay.
was played prior to Billie Jean and Beat It.
Also, you know what? YouTube.
Yep.
YouTube just makes it for you could just go and type up YNT right now and watch it.
Yeah. So why would you wait?
It's
on
just
it?
Billy
hard.
Squire, Rock Me Tonight. Everybody check that out on YouTube.
I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, trust me, you'll like it. I once showed 3/5 of the band VOD that video.
Oh yeah.
Inside-
are you working
inside-
on the other 2/5?
Inside Mike Kennedy's apartment.
Yeah.
It's true.
How'd it go?
We only made it through half because then more people arrived to hang out, and then we just got shut off.
Yeah.
I showed everyone the Jackal and DMC video, Talk Like a Negro. It's
How did that go?
well, I sent it to a few people that it blew their fucking mind. Like Sean Cooper from Taking Back Sunday, I showed it to him when he was on our podcast, and then when they were on tour, he showed it to all the other guys, and it was just like their minds were blown. But if you've never seen the video, just watch it because it's horrifying. It's Jackal got DMC from Run DMC to do a song, and it's
Wow.
worth
That
the
sounds like a
YouTube.
gem.
It's a,
Oh yeah, it's a gem already.
now, George, let me ask you. Just
Yes,
to
Greg.
just to veer off topic for a second.
No, I like this because
Okay.
you're an interviewer.
Yes, right
and
now
you're
I'm actually interviewing you.
Nick.
There you go.
And there we go.
Give me the high point of your career with Day in the Life, and what was the darkest moment with Day in the Life? Go ahead.
Hold that.
Sentimental fool, don't see, trying hard to recreate what had yet to be created. Once in her life, she musters a smile for his nostalgic tale. Never coming near what he wanted to say.
All right. Highlights and lowlights.
Very, very curious to hear this.
Well, I would say that a low light, I remember walking into the studio.
Do you remember like what year this would have been, so people have the correct?
98?
98, okay.
99? Was it 99?
Well, I remember Day in the Life's album came out in 97.
97. So it probably was 99.
Because I remember seeing a great show. It was Day in the Life in VOD at Irving Plaza.
Yes.
It was a great show. I remember that was a really, really good show. That was probably September.
Okay.
Because that was right when I was leaving that job I talked about earlier with the music publication.
Right. That was September of 97.
September of 97.
Okay.
That would have been September 97. That was right when the Day in the Life album came out, right? Or
I think I'm...
because,
Yeah, but we that tour would have been way after.
because I remember buying a Day in the Life shirt at that show, and it had the TVT Records logo on it.
Right.
So you would have had to at least been signed to TVT.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the album... Are you sure it didn't come out in 97?
Maybe it did.
I'm pretty sure it did.
I mean, I was in the band, but you're Greg.
Yeah.
Prato. So you Prato.
Right?
And you really do know your facts better.
Because I
than
remember you
anybody
did a
else.
great thing that night that you climbed in the audience and you said, I want everyone to take you climbed in the audience like a staged photo. Yeah, you told everyone to take a picture.
I've done that like 100 times.
Yeah, okay. There you go. I remember that was good. But anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm cutting into the question, which
That's
was
okay.
the darkest moment of Day in
Still
Life
trying to
and
figure
the
it out.
brightest
Well,
moment.
I mean, there's some dark days there, but there's some great days too. But I remember walking into practice, and I always go to practice, right?
Right.
Every band I've been in, I would always go when there's the writing. But they were writing, and for some reason I was like, I won't go. You guys write, and then I'll come back.
Okay.
And then it was Josh DeMarco was, we had Stefan, who was from Glassjaw. He was playing drums for us, and then
Which I'd like to interrupt. May Stefan also rest in peace.
Yes.
He passed away not too long ago, right?
rest in peace,
Yes.
Stefan. Yeah. And so Josh just kind of like turned off the music. And the other thing too was Mark Hunt was also joining. Like Josh wanted to do a project with Stefan and like
Okay.
more of a solo thing than he was
Okay.
starting. And Mark Hunt had started a band with Roy from Soulfly.
Guy from Machine Head.
One
right?
of the guys from Machine Head. What's his name?
Potsy Weber.
Potsy Weber from Machine Head. And the singer of Life of Agony, not Keith Caputo, the other guy that was in Ugly Kid Joe.
Whitfield Crane.
Whitfield Crane.
Yes.
Dated Karen Duffy.
It's like an all-star group. And it was just like all these things. I remember me and Chris Fleischman kind of looking at each other like all these things like, kind of just because I remember Blunt, Mark Hunt, was like, just, come to practice or whatever. Like, I was like, all right, something's up.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like somebody was quitting.
Okay.
But I didn't think it was all just dissipating in a moment. So that, that was kind of a bummer.
Okay.
But, there was also the other feeling, like sometimes I feel like somebody pulled me out of a burning airplane because,
Right.
did I want to go back on tour? Do I want
Right.
to, and I don't know how I was really feeling about doing all that. So
Right.
that was a little light.
Okay.
A highlight was when we were touring with Soulfly, Max Cavalera, for a certain section of the tour. He asked me to come up and sing a Beastie Boys cover with them. So we did Time for Living.
Oh, okay.
You know that fast, like hardcore
Yes.
song on Check Your Head?
That's a cover of a Sly and the Family song.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we did that for a bunch of dates. So
Oh, nice.
that was
Do you know if there's video of that on YouTube or anything?
There
or?
is.
Oh,
There
cool. I
is.
have to check that out.
It-
Nice.
I've seen it, and it's
Cool.
awesome.
I'll have to
Yeah.
check it out. Cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there we go. Well, thanks for that, Greg.
No, yeah.
Trip down memory lane.
Because I know I saw Day in the Life a few other times too.
Yeah.
There was a few other now defunct venues on Long Island.
Right.
You know.
Played like Industry.
There was another place too that I don't remember the name. I don't remember where the
We
hell
played
it was.
Deja One.
I forget.
Overall though, we didn't play Long Island that much. We got signed really quick.
Right.
And we lucked out and sort of started touring. So for the amount of times we actually played on Long Island, it wasn't a ton. And then you sort of get into like a touring mode.
Right.
And then you're not necessarily playing, on Long Island.
Right. I got you.
I gotta jump in.
Sure.
I forgot to mention this book, and if we could just touch on it briefly because it's my shit. The Survival of the Fittest.
Yes, heavy metal in the 1990s.
Because that was like a big deal.
It was.
It kind of went away, but like
It did and it didn't.
I see the cover
right.
has Pantera.
Yes.
And then certain bands like Pantera just got heavier, so that's amazing. But I'll let you talk about the book.
Yeah, I mean, there's this misconception that heavy metal died in the 90s, which it really didn't. It just kind of mutated and went into like different kind of forms and different subgenres and everything. But there was something about the 90s. I don't know, like you guys probably agree with me. From 1991 through maybe 94, it seemed like every month there was like some great, phenomenal new band to discover.
Yeah.
Which is the complete opposite of like today, I feel.
Right.
I feel like now it's just dead.
Well,
I mean,
it's also our age.
Yeah, I was going to say I discover new bands all the time, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I have no idea. But I'm like one of those people that makes lists, so it's like I have my 56 albums of last year. So I don't know.
I'm sure if I probably dug deep enough, I'd probably find good new bands.
Yeah,
but
I have
right now. I'm too old
life.
and I'm too lazy. So
yeah, I have absolutely no life except for music and podcasting, so it's easy for me.
yes, I'm too busy writing books to be bothered with discovering new bands. So.
Yeah. It's not like you're not, working over here, Craig.
You're doing it right.
Yeah, but the book Survival of the Fittest, Heavy Metal of the 1990s. For this book, I interviewed a wide variety of people. I interviewed Tom Kiefer of Cinderella, which is probably one of your favorite artists of all time, George. Right?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, you can't be from my part of town and not be a Cinderella fan.
And I also interviewed, of course, Max. You just mentioned Soulfly. I interviewed Max for the book. I interviewed Rex Brown from Pantera. I interviewed Ace Frehley from Kiss because that's when Kiss got back together. And we talk about the whole entire... I also interviewed people such as Eddie Trunk for the book. So he gives his, kind of views of the whole decade.
Yeah. Did he talk about UFO?
No, because that wasn't really in the 90s.
I'm just completely
yeah. But we it covers a pretty long... we talk about how, grunge may have like altered the... Well, at least grunge flushed all the hair metal down the toilet, which I will always be...
cool with.
Yeah, I was very, very happy with that. And... But, metal didn't die. People think metal died in the 90s. It didn't. There was Pantera, there was Prong, there was Sepultura.
Yeah.
Ministry became very popular in the 90s, you know. So, of course, Faith No More. Soundgarden, I thought, was a very heavy band.
Yeah, I don't...
Alice in Chains. Like, people
Alice
say
in
it's
Chains,
grunge.
definitely.
That was heavy.
Hair bands, and then those hair bands tried to look like,
right.
grunge. They got haircuts and
exactly.
stuff. But as far as metal, like metal shows, metal just never dies.
Right, metal
it
never
might get
dies,
a little like a little bit more underground. I guess
Right.
at the time, it wasn't like they were in huge tour buses anymore.
Right.
But they still were touring and playing.
True.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that book pretty much just talks about it and talks about all the different bands and how, for instance, like, MTV was affected. That was when I guess Headbangers Ball went off the air in 96, I think.
Maybe.
Around then, yeah. So we talk a little bit. I interviewed also Ricky Rackman for the book.
Oh, very cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, Pantera definitely, I feel like they were the band because you figure Reinventing the Seal came out in 2000. So they held that flag for the whole decade.
Yeah, I just realized Rex Brown wrote the foreword to that book.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. He just put out a solo record.
Yes, he did.
It's very like...
In fact, just to backtrack, we talk about Kirk Hammett. I just realized he wrote a foreword to another book I did called German Metal Machine Scorpions in the 70s.
Wow.
Because Kirk Hammett is a big fan of the Scorpions in the 70s.
He's a big Uli John Roth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, in fact, Uli John Roth is the gentleman that told me the correct pronunciation of Prato when I interviewed him once on the phone.
Yo,
it's true.
Full circle. Full circle.
Full circle.
But if you're a fan of heavy metal in the 90s, I think the Survival of the Fittest book is, I have some books that are that go under the radar.
Yeah.
The book about MTV kind of went under the radar.
Okay.
The book about 90s metal kind of went under the radar, but I think those are two very good books. I always get positive feedback. It's just both those books I also put out myself. Like sometimes, like the book called the Yacht Rock book, that one came out through Jawbone Press. The book about Pearl Jam is coming out through Triumph.
Right, so they have more of a machine to push it.
Yes, and also Grunge is Dead came out through ECW Press. So those are... I also did a book with Primus.
Wow.
About maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and that came out through Akashic Books.
So just basically about their career?
Whole entire career. It's called Over the Electric Grapevine, Insight into the Mind of... I think it's what it's called, Insight to Les Claypool and Primus. And that came out a few years back. And that was through the publisher called Akashic. So those are some books that came out through real publishers, and that has like a publicist pushing it, whereas some of my other books, it's just me putting it out. And I have some pretty good connections, but some of them kind of fly under the radar.
Yeah.
The book about Shannon Hoon is still a very popular book, so like that one's pretty popular. The book about Eric Carr, called The Eric Carr Story, is a pretty popular book. But yeah, the book about MTV called MTV Ruled the World, that kind of flew under the radar. And the book about 90s metal called Survival of the Fittest kind of flew under the radar.
What about the Underappreciated?
Yeah, that's all. That one is just a list. We go through A through Z. I pretty much just went through my iPod at the time and just because like the thing with iPods and stuff and iPhones, although I love all Spotify and stuff like that, it's very easy to like forget bands and things like that. Like whereas when you used to have CDs and records, you could just flip through your records or look at all your CDs.
Right.
So I kept finding myself forgetting about bands and albums. So I just started making a list of all bands and albums that I kept forgetting about that I thought were very underrated, and that's called Underrated, Underappreciated.
Yeah, that's a great, great concept.
Yes,
I know what I'm getting you for Christmas, man.
Yeah, and I talk about the album, and I talk about like the standout track and what it's similar to if you're not familiar with the band. And
oh, what a fucking great idea!
Thank you.
Yeah,
and that came out a few years back.
Huh?
Do you have like a white whale of like someone that you want to interview and you couldn't get it, or
I was gonna?
I mean,
we were thinking
living or dead.
Yeah.
Living or dead? You mean like living or?
Let's do both.
Either or. One living, one dead.
Okay, well, Freddie Mercury is my all-time favorite singer, so I guess to get with him. Or I guess Jimi Hendrix. Would have been interesting to interview him.
Right.
But like I see interviews with him, and he seems like he's always stoned, so I don't know how great the interview would have been.
Right. But with you, Greg, it would have been great. Come on.
Living. Let me think about this for a second. Oh, it just popped in my mind. A really good face-to-face interview I did was Tony Iommi from the band Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
That was a good face-to-face interview I did. Let me think. I mean, I interviewed a lot of the people that... I guess a member of Queen, because Queen is my all-time favorite band.
Right.
So to interview, I guess, like Brian May would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's... Yeah, I guess I'd go with that.
Right.
What do you think about Paul Rodgers singing for Queen?
Nah, without Freddie Mercury, it's just not Queen.
Yeah.
And I liked Adam. Excuse me. I don't know what's wrong with my voice. I have my water here. Although I liked Adam Lambert on.
Oh, another one. Yeah.
Yes, I mean I liked him on American Idol. Although I liked him on American Idol, I just can't stomach someone taking the place of Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, there's just nowhere to go.
Yeah, I just can't stomach that. So I mean, there's been some instances where I like I could accept a replacement like like Dio and Black Sabbath. I like those albums. Yeah. Brian Johnson with AC/DC, I like some of those albums. But like Sammy Hagar and Van Halen, I could never get behind. Mm-hmm. I can't get behind
Bruce Dickinson.
Bruce Dickinson, I liked. I liked Maiden up till Seventh Son, which was 1988.
My favorite album.
Yeah, beyond that, I just can't stomach it, though.
Okay. Yeah, that's my favorite.
Mm-hmm. The first two Maiden albums, though, I think are by far the best Maiden albums. That's just my personal.
Wrathchild.
Yeah, because I love the punk metal thing more than the prog metal thing that they turned into.
When you get into these interviews, did you ever get into an interview where somebody just wasn't like giving it up? They do like, lots of interviews. Maybe they're just not into it or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, some of them.
Give us some dirt.
Well, the weirdest one was probably William Shatner.
Okay.
That was probably the weirdest interview just because he put out an album. It was like and now I got to tell you, I love his music.
Really?
I love William Shatner's music.
Okay.
I love it.
There's a statement you don't hear
I've yet. That's it. You're the first.
You've heard it here
Yes.
first.
Yeah. Did you ever hear his version of Rocket Man?
Yeah.
Yeah. On Stern.
Yes.
I mean, do you like it because it's funny, or you?
It started as a joke, and now I think I'm a legitimate fan.
Legitimate fan?
Yeah, legitimate fan.
Here comes the book.
Yes.
I see a book in 2019.
All right. So, he put out an album that wasn't a particularly good album. It was
William
like
Shatner from Star Trek to Rocket Man.
Right.
There's your title, Greg.
There you go. He put out an album where it was like orchestrated music, and it's him just like doing a spoken word. And it wasn't really that good.
Yeah.
He did an album with Ben Folds a while back that I thought was very good.
Oh, that's weird. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah, which I forget the. Oh, it's called Has Been. Yeah, you should check that out. It's good.
I've never. That's
Yeah,
blown
Check
my
it out,
mind.
Sam. Let me know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he actually does this song with what's his name? Henry Rollins.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's William Shatner and also Henry Rollins.
I'm getting the feeling somebody was researching this book.
Is there anything Henry Rollins won't do?
But anyway, the interview was supposed to be about this album he put out, and then I get him on the phone, and he thought I was interviewing him about a book. So I started asking him questions about the album, and he was answering him a little bit, but he was like a little strange. And then he kind of just wanted to talk about his book. And meanwhile, I'm interviewing him for Record Collector magazine. I'm not, you know. So I was able to get some questions, but it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. And then he kind of just, after maybe 10 or 15 minutes, was like, "Oh, I have another interview I have to do," and just cut it off. So I was like, "All right, well, that was kind of weird," but I was able to still do the interview and everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had interviews with people for like books and stuff that like I've done the interview, and then like afterwards they're just very difficult that I just couldn't use their interviews. So those are probably the biggest dicks, and I don't even want to say their names because why would you want to give them any credit?
Yeah.
Well, we want to hashtag it. That's
Yeah.
this is the modern day.
Is that,
Yeah,
is
so-
that something that, like, I mean, at this point of the game, you've been doing it for so long that I can't imagine that it affects you that much. If anything, it probably just makes you angry.
It's just more a waste of my time.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, are you that much of a douchebag that you're wasting not only my time but your time with like an hour-long interview that's not going to be used for anything?
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, you're just
And it's
talking.
for it's
Right.
it's about them. It's a good
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of anyone else that was kind of a dick. Let me think.
Ingve Malmsteen.
I actually interviewed him once, and he was actually pretty cool on the phone. So
Okay.
yeah, it's funny. There's people that you would think would be difficult or assholes aren't, and then the people that you think are really cool sometimes are dicks. So
Yeah.
you can't like you have in like your mind like who these people.
Thomas McRocklin.
I never interviewed him.
Yeah, I was just trying to throw a name that you wouldn't know.
No, I know he was in a band called Bad for Good.
That's right,
Yes.
with Danny Cooksey
Yes.
and Bad Religion's
Yes.
Brooks Wackerman.
But I would definitely say Eddie Vedder was a very nice guy on the phone.
And you
Yeah.
said you talked to him for hours.
Yes,
right?
hours for the book called Grunge is Dead. I was very lucky. He, I think, is the only person he's really ever opened up to about the early years with Pearl Jam. He was, and I talk about this as in the forward to the book, he was interviewed by Rolling Stone magazine about a year before, and the guy asked him about, like, questions. He's like, "No, I don't want to talk about early Pearl Jam. You just had to be there to understand it."
Right.
And then a year later, he just totally spilled the beans for me, which was, I'll forever be in debt to him for that.
Yeah.
Probably just because
Yeah.
he felt like you're a genuine fan and like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
From that point, you're just like, yeah, it's easy. It's a conversation.
He was it felt like I connected with him on like a friend type level to the
Absolutely.
point like I was tempted at the end to be like, this is really great speaking with you. Like, would you want to keep in contact? But then I realized like he doesn't give a shit about. He doesn't want to talk to fucking like Greg Prato in 2 years. So,
Well,
so
the guy from Soundgarden does.
he does. That's true. That's true. That's true.
Don't
Yeah,
short
yeah.
yourself.
So I guess I could have. I guess I blew it, but that's just the way it is.
So is the next book.
Yeah, right. Right, there you go.
What would you think of the Cameron Crowe documentary on them?
Excellent. I thought the book was really good too. I actually bought that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like the documentary. I even bought the thing. There's an iTunes exclusive thing where it's like bonus performances.
I didn't
Yeah.
see that one, but I loved it. It made me actually want to revisit the catalog.
If you like that, you're going to love this forthcoming Pearl Jam book that's coming out because we talk about everything. We talk about that. We talk about the whole history of Pearl Jam, and it's called 100 Things Every Pearl Jam Fan Should Know and Do Before They Die, coming out in May through Triumph Books.
Awesome.
Yes. And for that book, Matt Pinfield wrote the forward.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
He is the man.
He's the man.
He is a very nice gentleman. He goes him and also Eddie Trunk I have nothing but, and also Gary Delabate from the Howard Stern Show. Those three guys, I have to give it up to them, have been nothing but supportive, helpful. Like I'll email them like, hey, do you know such and such? Yeah, sure. Here's an email.
Wow.
Like that, I mean, I guess because they know my books and they're a fan of my writing, so they know I'm not some schmuck off the street,
Just
so
to,
yeah. But they've been incredible helps over the years.
Growing up, like, we're probably similar in that way. Like before Google, people would come to me and ask me certain things about movies and music, and I would answer it, and like people like Matt Pinfield were the people that we looked up to.
Right.
But like, God, this guy knows everything. I got to get to be on that guy's level. No matter what you asked him, like he was just so goddamn knowledgeable. And anytime I went to Roseland to go see whoever, he was always there, just hanging out.
He's always a super nice guy.
Super nice.
Super nice, yeah.
I met him a few times. He was super nice. I think, but Matt Pinfield is super knowledgeable, but Eddie Trunk is such a great interviewer.
Yes,
he's very, very good.
I've always wanted
a lot of interviews.
I've always wanted to go up against him with like metal or rock trivia.
Oh, right. Well, he again with the trivia, he's second to none.
Stump the Truck, and also Kiss trivia. I think I could probably do pretty good against him with Kiss trivia.
I listened to his podcast too. I think some of his like tastes are a little dated. Something rubbed me the wrong way that he hated when Public Enemy did a song with Anthrax. So
Bring the Noise?
Yeah, once he mentioned that on that metal show, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But aside from that, I'm a fan of that. You also did a piece on Vinnie Vincent, who popped up.
He is in. I didn't interview him for the Shredder's book, but there's people talking about him in the Shredder's book. Yes,
but I think you did a piece on him.
Oh yeah, I recently did. I write for. I mean, if you want, I could tell you some of the sites and magazines I write for. Currently, I write for Song Facts, Long Island Pulse, Vintage Guitar Magazine, and also Alternative Nation. That was the website I wrote the Vinnie Vincent thing about. Because are you familiar with who Vinnie Vincent is, George?
Yeah.
But he, you could tell everything.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I'm not that.
Vinnie Vincent. Vinnie Vincent is a guitarist who joined. He replaced Ace Frehley in Kiss. So he's on the Creatures of the Night album, but was not credited. He was a ghost guitarist and also songwriter. They used his real name, Vincent Cusano. So you'll see like songs written by Gene Simmons / Vincent Cusano, and that's Vinnie Vincent. They eventually let him join the band. He toured for the Creatures of the Night album and played and toured for the Lick It Up album, which is the album they took their makeup off on. Then he left, and no one really knew why he left. Then he was in a band called the Vinnie Vincent Invasion, which is another one of those bands that are so awful that it's fascinating. They have a video called Boys Are Gonna Rock. You have to see that one. That's also a Rock Me Tonight type video. That you'll be watching and you can't believe what you're watching.
Mark Slaughter was the singer.
Yes, Mark Slaughter was the singer before he was in the band Slaughter.
Bobby Rock from the band Nelson.
Yes. So anyway, he was in that, and it was like the most extreme hair metal ever.
Yeah.
And then that broke up, and then he just fell off the face of the earth. He turned into a hermit, like no one heard from him, except he would keep trying to sue Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. Repeatedly. Yeah. He would just sue them and sue them and sue them, and no one knew what he was doing until about 10 years ago. He was arrested for a domestic abuse incident or a domestic violence incident, and also when they showed up, they found dead dogs on his property in containers.
Oh my God.
So, and then there was also rumors that he was like a cross-dresser, or he may have transitioned, he may be transgender.
Okay.
And people didn't know what he was up to until about a month ago. He just showed up at a KISS convention.
Okay.
And no one had the balls to ask him if he's transgender, but he definitely looks transgender.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. He looks like, kind of like a heavy-set Italian woman.
Yeah.
Because I tell you, the story's taking a turn that I didn't expect.
Because he's put on a little bit of weight, and he's dressed still not strangely, but he's wearing like I can't even explain the type of boots he's wearing.
Like very casual, like almost like a school teacher.
Kind of,
like
yeah.
A female school teacher.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad description. It's true. That's not a bad description.
Kind of like a little Janet Wood from Three's Company look going on.
A little bit, yeah. And but he did an interview with also Eddie Trunk, and then he also appeared at this convention, and he explained the whole thing about the domestic incident, and he explained his side of the story, and he kind of cleared that up a little bit. But so anyway, I just did a little article for the Alternative Nation site about that. But
cool, fascinating story.
Yeah, so it is kind of an interesting story about him.
Yeah, we'll
'cause,
put those links too. I want to,
Sure.
Because all your articles. So, Greg.
Yes.
Name of the podcast is called If I Ruled the World. So we pose to our guests this question. If you ruled the world, what would that look like?
It would be nothing but good music and no shitty music.
Nice.
And I would be in control of the music.
Sounds like you've been thinking
You
about
would be
it.
the ultimate. Yeah. So you
DJ?
Yeah.
VJ. I'd be the ultimate VJ. I don't know. I'd be the ultimate podcaster.
The VJ would be sort of a weekend thing.
Right.
Then the music would be during the
Right.
week. And but I think if you need a book, if Greg Prato rules the world. There you go.
Yes,
There's
thank
your
you.
title.
And also, just one last time, just want to plug the Yacht Rock book. For this book, I interviewed all the Yacht Rock guys. There's a chapter about the inside story of the song Escape, the Pina Colada song, which I know you're a big fan of, George, right?
Right. Again.
Would you like to just sing a little bit? Seriously, sing a little bit. If you like what?
Pina Colada.
Keep going a little bit. Getting what? Caught in the rain.
Rain.
If you're
Well,
not into yoga.
That was the skateboarding song.
Right.
That's what we used to skateboard to, Greg.
Right.
It was like Public
Yes.
Enemy, Black
Yes.
Flag, and then
Dead
So
Yeah,
that's in
we
it.
used to-
And also, just quickly, another very good modern day yacht rockish type artist. Do you guys know Thundercat?
no.
And
Yeah.
the cartoon.
I was not familiar with him until this book. There's an artist named Thundercat. Look him up on YouTube. There's a great thing. He was on The Tonight Show with Michael McDonald and also Kenny Loggins, and they do a original song, and it sounds just like yacht rock.
Okay.
It's phenomenal. So we talk about that in the book, and I interviewed all these other guys from the Eagles and all other stuff. It's called the Yacht Rock Book, coming out March 6th. And, of course, you can come down and meet me on April 8th at Cluett Hall in Garden City, right off Stewart Avenue. For Vinyl Revolution, I'll be signing the Yacht Rock Book, Shredders, and a variety of other books as well.
Yeah, do yourself a favor. Come down. Pick up a book. If you don't make it, go to Amazon, put in Greg Prato, and you'll see all of his books.
Everything.
And also Twitter. I'm on twitter.com/Greg Prato Writer. I always post my latest interviews and articles on that as well.
Like George said, the amount of books, the content blew me away. Like when we were doing research before you came in, I was just like, yo, this is like the most things that anyone that we've ever spoken to has ever done. Like everything. Like
It's like a where do you not where do you begin? That's easy. Where do you end?
Yes.
Right.
Well, thank you guys. And George, thank you for that little tidbit about your day in the life days.
Oh, anytime. I'm full of them.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
All right. Thanks, Greg.
I